With the lower axis complete, we move on to the upper axis. So this is pretty much identical to the lower axis, as some of the parts have different shapes. But as far as two bearings on each side, plates, internal plates, and a stepper piece is pretty much the same. So I'm going to start with the two end plates. I'm just going to push the bearings into them. One thing, the bearings on here have a small bevel so that they only ride on the edge. Some of the kits or do-it-yourself instructions I've read use standard 126 bearings as drop ends, but I don't really see how they keep the bearings from obviously not acting as thrust washers, like they're laying flat against a complete flat surface. So with these, they're beveled so that only the outer casing rests on it, so that the inner is free to rest, or is free to spin back and forth. I'm going to go ahead and finish assembling these just like I assembled the lower axis. Each stepper side uses 6 of the 3 1/4s and 6 of the 3 1/4s for the stepper, 2 of the 3 1/4s for the internal piece, and so this one just uses 2 of the 3/4 for the internal piece, and each side uses 2 of the 3mm by 20 self-tapping button heads, and then I have the 1/2 inch that I use to affix the internal piece to the extrusions. I have 4 holes here, but the kit's sort of designed just for these 2 holes here, so you can ignore those extra holes. So I'm going to go ahead and assemble the end caps. Okay, so these have been assembled. I'm going to flip this over, the table over. The stepper, I'm just following the convention that they use with the handles, so I'm going to put basically this stepper on this side, end plate here. This one end plate, because it does have because it has these arms for the stepper, it doesn't have the 2 cutouts for the T-slots. It just has the central, but the other end has all 3 cut out, so it's still plenty accessible. You'll notice on the bottom of these stepper plates, there's these 2 little ridges here, and the ridges are for the limit switches to fit in between. And you can either drill in and attach these with screws, or glue them in place. The downside of gluing them in place is, these are long life switches, but if you do have a problem with one, they're going to be harder to swap out. So I'm going to put these in place now, and then start threading the lead screw through. One thing I'd like to do with the lead screws is insert them with the sort of the barren section of the threaded shaft first. That way it kind of centers in through the bearing, so you don't end up causing damage to the threads. And then we need to insert the printed spacer. And then now we want to insert the sort of the little metal bearing guide Okay, so one thing to make sure, I think I mentioned it on the lower axis, is you want to make sure and have a gap in between the metal spacer and the printed spacer, and that's so that the metal spacer can sort of ride back and forth on the bearing. What you are trying to avoid is having the metal spacer stick out past the bearing and have the collar lock on that, because you'll end up with slop that way. And the way you can control that distance is by adjusting how much this nut is threaded on the lead screw. So this is adjusted properly. I'm going to put the Dubro locking collar on, and then I'm going to tension it like I did the lower axis. I basically set it up. Use this little piece from the kit that we're not reusing. Push down on it, and then tighten the locking collar. Now you can end up putting more or less stress on it, but what you do is you would hold this nut here, and basically, or you'd tighten this nut and end up holding this. This has a threaded slot in it, so you could use like a screwdriver or whatever to hold the lead screw in place, and that's how you would increase the tension on it. So this is the XY table completed now. I'll go ahead and put on the extra XY coupler. And these also go on 9 millimeters deep. And there we go. It's assembled. You know, it's good enough for now, good enough for testing. We will deal with tensioning the axes later. So yeah, these are both set up and ready to go on the, ready to be installed to the base. The next video will be about assembling the Z axis.